Hello everybody, welcome back to Ask a Moonie, Part 3, with your favorite Jewish Moonie, Ely Loew. Favorite because I doubt you know very many other Jewish Moonies. But for those of you that do, I hope I'm your favorite one. Okay, so, first of all I want to apologize for the delay from the last video to this one. I'm having a little bit of technical difficulties making these videos, and I apologize. I won't go into details, but I'm doing my best to try to get a video out every week, but no promises. It could be once every 2 weeks, once every 3 weeks. So, and second, I'd like to thank everyone for your feedback, your suggestions, any advice you gave. I really appreciate it. Give me some time to try to implement them or to respond to you. I'm doing my best to fit everything into my schedule. So, also, since watching the second video, I've kind of decided rather than just reading, which I think is a little dull and not as engaging, I'd rather just kind of do a summary and then read select parts that I think are the most interesting and the most powerful. So to pick up where we left off, last time we were talking about this division in the human mind. And the argument then becomes, is this division natural, or is it something that we acquired? And this is a very important question, because if the division is natural, which a lot of people believe, since it's been around for so long, then it kind of makes it an issue of how to restrain it, or how to curb it, or how to deal with it. Where if it's unnatural, the question becomes how to get rid of it. And so we believe, and the divine principle is teaching, that this evil desires, which originate in what we call an evil mind, is unnatural. It's something acquired. And if we read if we read the Bible and the Christian idea, and even the Islamic teachings and the Jewish teachings, the idea is that there's an origin of evil. And even further than just the three major religions, actually most religions have an origin of evil story. You even have in Greek mythology the story of Pandora's box. You have in African tribes the story of the origin of evil. So we could say there's even some subconscious group consciousness understanding that evil originated. Now, whether you believe that or not, that's open for a big debate. To keep it simple, though, we believe evil was obtained, that the human beings could not come into existence with a contradiction, because this contradiction is really destructive. In order for something to be created, it needs harmonious union of two forces. And if something is conflicting against each other and fighting against each other, this creates a destructive force. So it seems contradictory to say that life could arise from a contradictory force, forces pulling against each other. So the next question comes then, if we're evil, part of us is evil, how do we get rid of this? And in order to get rid of it, it's kind of like a disease. If you think about a disease, the first thing you have to do is study what is a perfect body. When you go to med school, first you study the human anatomy. What is a body? How does it function? How does it work? Then you study the diseases, and then you study the cures. So the divine principle is kind of the same format. First it starts with God's idea, his idea. What was he trying to create? What's the goal? How does the world work according to God? And then we study how did evil arise, and then we study how to fix evil and how to cure it. So the problem though right now is that we don't know. The problem with human beings is that no matter how good and how holy a person tries to be, they still have this evil inside them that they're fighting against constantly. So the origin of wars, the origin of conflict starts in each individual. Each individual is fighting inside themselves. And so this conflict expands beyond them to include their families, their workplace, their societies, and then it becomes fights, among societies and eventually among nations. And you have things like world wars. So in order to solve this problem, we have to start with ourselves. But we can't solve it if we don't know how. And the biggest problem is ever since the fall of man, human beings have become ignorant. They become ignorant of God, they were ignorant of science, they were ignorant of how the world worked. So God has been trying, it's a very slow process obviously, but he's been trying to educate people and raise them up. And in the Asian way of thinking, there's two parts of a human being. and to the whole world actually. They believe that there is an invisible internal aspect to everything and an external and physical aspect to everything. So maybe this idea of a soul is comparable. And also for any of you that have studied East Asian philosophies, this idea of yin and yang and a harmony between internal and external. So many religions and people express that in many different ways, but the basic idea is that there's an internal ignorance and an external ignorance. And so the internal ignorance, in order to educate people about internal ignorance, for example, what is the meaning of life, why are we here, things about love and emotions and relationships, is there a God? If there is, what kind of God is he? Then these things all are internal ignorance. And so in order for God to educate us, then God has used religion. And every religion has been created for the specific culture, specific time period, to educate people about these points. But the other part, which is just as important actually, is external ignorance, which is ignorance about how the world works. Why do crops grow? Why does it rain? Why does the sun come up? How do you cure disease? These are all external things which require science. And science has been the method that God has been using to educate people about external truths. And so in order to really understand the truth, in order to really be able to solve the problems of this world, we need a balance of external truth and internal truth. Not a balance actually, but a full knowledge of both science and the deeper messages of religion. So I'm going to read a section that I find very, very interesting, which addresses this actually contradiction between science and religion. And one of the problems with religion is it's been so against science. Many things that are very, very scientifically proven, and still religious people deny them. And this has kind of created a backlash, of course, from the scientific community, which has started to become more and more atheistic and anti-religious, especially with the rise of books and authors like Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens, which I've read both their stuff, by the way. So, another factor has faded religions to decline. In step with the progress of science, the human intellect has become highly sophisticated, requiring a scientific approach to understanding reality. The traditional doctrines of religions, on the other hand, are largely devoid of scientific explanations. That is to say, the current interpretations of internal and external truth do not agree. The ultimate purpose of religion can be attained only when one first believes in one's heart and then puts it into practice. However, without first understanding, beliefs do not take hold. So what we're saying here is the problem now with religions is that people can't even understand them. They don't even make sense a lot of the time. So there's no basis for belief. So the introduction is arguing that we need a new truth. We need something that can be scientific and logical in addressing internal and emotional and spiritual issues. And so this is what the divine principle is claiming to be able to do. Religion and science, setting out with the missions of dispelling the two aspects of human ignorance, have seemed in the course of their development to take positions that were contradictory and irreconcilable. However, for humankind to completely overcome the two aspects of ignorance and fully realize the goodness which the original mind desires, at some point in history there must emerge a new truth which can reconcile religion and resolve their problems in an integrated undertaking. And our claim is that we, the Unification Church, the Moonies, and with the divine principle, here we go, are the ones capable to do that. So my time is up for this video, and feel free to ask questions, and I'll expand on this. Actually, you know what? I think I'll just make another video right now. So stay tuned for 3.2.